She's not complying. Take her down. Now. The shout cut through the morning quiet. A sharp crackle, a woman's cry of pain, and then a thud. If you believe no one should be hurt in their own home like this, type "Safety First" below. Arthur Jenkins watched, his heart a cold stone in his chest, as his wife, Mary, fell to their living room floor. Men in heavy black gear and helmets swarmed around her, their movements quick and rough. This was his home, his sanctuary for 50 years. Now it was a place of fear. Arthur was an old man. His hair was white, his shoulders a little stooped. He wore simple clothes, a soft blue shirt, and comfortable pants. He looked like any grandfather you might see reading a book on a park bench. But Arthur Jenkins was not just any old man. He had served his country for 30 years. He had faced dangers most people only saw in movies. He had learned to be calm when things were terrible. Right now, things were terrible. He and Mary had been eating breakfast, toast and jam, talking about the birds in the garden. Then, a loud crash. The front door splintered, men shouted. They were looking for someone. A dangerous person, they said. Arthur tried to tell them they had the wrong house. He tried to tell them who he was. The man in charge, a captain named Thorne, had a hard face and eyes that didn't listen. He pushed Arthur back. "Stay out of it, old man," Captain Thorne had barked. Mary, scared by the shouting and the guns, had moved. Maybe she reached for Arthur. Maybe she just flinched. That was when Thorne yelled. That was when Mary fell. Arthur looked at his wife, lying still. He felt a fire start inside him, a hot anger, but his face stayed calm. His voice, when he finally spoke, was low and steady, not like the captain's loud shouts. "Captain," Arthur said. Thorne turned, annoyed. "I told you to stay back. One more word from you, and you'll be on the floor next to her." He thought Arthur was just a scared old man. He was wrong. Arthur felt a deep ache for Mary. He saw the fear in her eyes before they closed. He felt the unfairness of this, like a heavy weight. He knew he couldn't fight these men with his fists. He was old. But he had other strengths. He thought for a moment. What could he do? He could yell, but they wouldn't listen. He could try to push past them, but they were too strong. Then he remembered. He remembered promises made long ago. He remembered a small, worn card in his wallet, a card with a special phone number. But he wouldn't need the card, not yet. First, he would use his words, words that carried the weight of his life. "Captain Thorne," Arthur said again. His voice was not loud, but it cut through the tense air in the room. Every SWAT officer, even those checking other rooms, seemed to pause. "What is it now?" Thorne snapped, impatient. He wanted to get on with his raid, find the bad guy he was sure was hiding. Arthur looked straight into Captain Thorne's eyes. "You are making a very big mistake," Arthur said, his voice quiet but full of power. "This is my home. I am Sergeant Major Arthur Jenkins, retired, United States Army." A few of the younger SWAT officers shifted their feet. Sergeant Major. That was a name with respect. Thorne just scoffed. "I don't care if you're Santa Claus. We have a warrant for this address." "Your warrant is wrong," Arthur stated, his gaze unwavering. "And that woman you just tasered, that is my wife of 50 years, Mary Jenkins. She has a heart condition." A flicker of something, doubt, crossed Thorne's face, but he quickly covered it. She should have complied. Arthur took one slow step forward. He was not threatening. He was a man demanding to be heard. "Captain Thorne," he said, his voice like ice now, "you have exactly one chance to order your men to stand down and call for medical help for my wife." Thorne opened his mouth to interrupt, to shout again. But Arthur continued, "Or my very next words will be a phone call to General Thompson. He is the head of the state police. He was a young lieutenant when I was his sergeant major. He gave me his private number and told me to call him if I ever needed anything at all." Arthur paused. "Do you think he will be pleased to hear that his old mentor's wife was just assaulted by your team in her own home because of your mistake?" The room went completely silent. Frozen. Captain Thorne's angry face went pale. The name General Thompson was not a small name. Every cop in the state knew who General Thompson was. A tough, fair man. A man you did not want to anger. The other SWAT officers looked from Arthur to their captain. They saw the calm, cold certainty in the old soldier's eyes. They saw the sudden fear in their captains. If you've ever seen someone realize they made a huge mistake, type, "Oh no," in the comments. Thorne swallowed hard. He looked at Arthur, then at Mary on the floor, then back at Arthur. The old man hadn't blinked. Aye, Thorne stammered. His radio suddenly crackled. "Captain Thorne, this is dispatch. We have an urgent update on that warrant. Stand by for command." Thorne's eyes widened. He grabbed his radio. Before he could speak, a new voice, much higher ranking, boomed from it. "Thorne, what is your status? Confirm your location." "We have a report of a major error. Is Sergeant Major Arthur Jenkins at that address?" Thorne looked like he'd been hit by a truck. He mumbled into the radio, "Yes, sir. He is here." Outside, new sirens wailed, getting closer, much closer. These were not the same sirens as before. These sounded more important. Within minutes, the chief of police himself burst through the door, his face grim. 2 other high-ranking officers were with him. They didn't look at Thorne, they looked at Arthur. "Sergeant Major Jenkins," the chief exclaimed, rushing to his side. "Arthur, what in God's name happened here?" The chief knew Arthur. They had met at city events, at veteran memorials. He knew Arthur's reputation. The truth came out fast. The wrong address on the warrant. A terrible, stupid mistake. The SWAT team had been so focused on their mission, they hadn't listened, they hadn't looked. They hadn't seen the framed photos on the wall of a younger Arthur in uniform, covered in medals. They hadn't noticed the display case with a neatly folded flag and more honors. They had only seen an old man and an old woman who were in their way. Captain Thorne stood frozen, his face white as a sheet. He knew he was in deep trouble. The chief of police turned to him, his eyes blazing with anger. "Captain Thorne, you are relieved of your command, effective immediately. Hand over your badge." Paramedics who had arrived with the chief were now carefully attending to Mary. She was groggy but conscious. Arthur was by her side, holding her hand, his calm finally showing a crack as he whispered soft words to her. The chief of police turned back to Arthur. "Sergeant Major Jenkins, on behalf of the entire department, I am so deeply sorry. There are no words. This never should have happened." He promised a full investigation. He promised that Captain Thorne would face serious consequences. He promised that all of Mary's medical bills would be covered. He promised they would fix the broken door and any other damage. "We will change our procedures," the chief said, his voice firm. "We will make sure something like this can never, ever happen again. Your city respects you, Sergeant Major. We failed you today. We will make it right." Mary was taken to the hospital to be checked over. Arthur went with her. He never raised his voice. He never made threats beyond that one powerful statement. He had stood for what was right, with courage and dignity. The story of what happened spread through the city. People were angry about how Arthur and Mary had been treated. They were impressed by Arthur's quiet strength. Captain Thorne was suspended, and the investigation led to new training for the entire SWAT unit, focusing on de-escalation and verifying information. Arthur and Mary recovered. Their home was repaired. But things were different. They knew how quickly a normal day could turn terrifying. Arthur didn't want fame. He just wanted justice for Mary, and for things to be fair. He was glad that changes were made. He hoped it would help others. He remained the quiet, humble man he had always been, a hero not just for what he did in the past, but for how he handled a terrible wrong with strength and grace. What happened to Arthur and Mary reminds us that true strength isn't about shouting the loudest or having the biggest weapons. It's about inner calm, courage, and standing up for what's right, even when it's hard. It teaches us not to judge people by how they look because you never know the hero that might be standing in front of you. If you believe veterans like Arthur deserve our deepest respect and gratitude, type "Honor our heroes" below. And please, subscribe to our channel for more stories that inspire and uplift. Remember, a little respect goes a long way.